Hey up, it's Steve from that old Yorkshire geek. We've got a bit of a list to look at tonight. 10 biggest what the flipping flip moments from Star Trek Voyager. So let's just get on with it, shall we? I'm in the dark as much as you about this. But anyway, here we go. Before we start, don't forget, like and subscribe, share the videos, drop a comment, hit the notification bell if you're subscribed already. This will be on Patreon for a while before I upload it to YouTube and Rumble and Spotify and Amazon Music Podcasts and Google Podcasts. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Links are in the description for all those, as I have the links for my 2 books. There they are, can you make it out? Mercury Rapids, a light-hearted sci-fi action-adventure. And Silent Predator, a short horror novella. Just a bit of fun on Amazon, Kindle and paperback. Right, here we go. 10 biggest what the flippy flip moments from Star Trek Voyager. This is from whatculture.com. Right, so off we go. Voyager's wackiest adventures in the unexplored depths of the Delta Quadrant. Star Trek Voyager, that's obviously from the 2-parter from, I think, season 3? I think it was season 3, wasn't it? Yeah, I think. But I forgot what it was called because I'm an idiot. I'm sure we'll get to it. Right, something to do with time. I can't remember. Star Trek Voyager certainly didn't shy away from the strangeness of exploring unknown space. The crew of the ship experienced a lot of messed up stuff during their stay in the Delta Quadrant. They had to contend with malfunctioning tech, awkward alien encounters, and much more on their journey home to Earth. I think the malfunctioning tech were generally the bioorganic, whatever, gel packs, which are like, you know, biotechnology. I forgot the bloody name of them now. What's up with me tonight? But I think that was a bit of a mistake. You know, they tried to use biotechnology, didn't they, in Voyager? And I think they ended up essentially replacing them with just regular circuitry, pretty much. Anyway, so with that in mind, let's go through the most absurd moments in Star Trek Voyager, and on the way, we'll learn more about the ship's crew and the history of the Trek universe in general. Fire up your nacelles for Warp 10 and get ready to hear some of... I bet we see about Warp 10. To get ready to hear about some of Starfleet's weirdest adventures. Right, number 10. The Doctor's opera performance. And there he is singing away, and... TwoVix getting all emotional. Of course we had to mention Tinker 10, a Doctor Spy, the episode where the Doctor added the ability to daydream to his programme. This was one of Voyager's more comedic episodes and a goldmine for what the flip moments. Among other things, the Doctor daydreamed about all the female senior officers fighting for his affection and imagined himself commanding the ship and bravely defeating the Borg. But the weirdest daydream came right at the start of the episode. Tinker 10, a Doctor Spy opened with the Doctor singing the Italian opera aria La Donna Mobile to the crew in the mess hall. As the song progressed, TwoVix started acting stranger and stranger, first bursting into tears before laughing uncontrollably and falling to the floor. TwoVix pushed Paris aside, and the Doctor told everyone to stand back, and to the melody of his opera sang that TwoVix was going through his pon farr and losing his mind at his sexual frustration. Still in song, the Doctor told Paris to load a hypo spray, which the Doctor was able to use to knock out the hormonal Vulcan with one shot from behind. It was only after this sequence that we learned it was all a daydream. This scene was definitely one of the most memorable cold opens in Trek history. The Doctor's singing, combined with everyone else's ambivalent reaction to the whole situation, absolutely makes this one of the most jaw-droppingly absurd moments to come out of Voyager. We saw the Doctor sing a lot, and I don't know why. Was it just stroking Robert Picardo's ego because he likes to sing? I don't know, but we saw him singing a lot in Voyager, and, you know, I didn't particularly want to see him singing. I wanted him to see him doing heroic doctory hologrammy things, not singing. Anyway, let's move on to the next one, number 9. Here we go, number 9. By the way, this it was in one of those where you had to go click next, you know, for the next page. They don't have more than the same one, so I've got them all lined up ready. Haha. Number 9, the story of Seven's Borg family. This was an interesting episode. Once, while 7 of 9 was still a Borg drone, her ship was damaged and crashed on a planet. The only survivors were 7 and 3 other drones, who all became separated from the collective and started to remember things from their past lives. Eventually, they were all re-assimilated. 7 was reconnected to the Borg, but the 3 others had a malfunction that created their own separate mini-collective with each other and were able to escape the Borg. Unfortunately, they remained linked together. Years later, in the episode Survival Instinct, they found Voyager and sought out 7 of 9 in the hopes that she would hold the key to separating their minds and becoming full individuals. 7 agreed to help them by linking her own mind to their collective. However, when they linked, the 4 former drones remembered what happened on the planet 8 years ago. The others chose to leave the collective, and 7 re-assimilated them herself to prevent their escape. This temporarily ended their resistance and resulted in the link between the group. Given that 7 was assimilated as a child, whereas the others were adults when they became Borg, leaving the collective was harder for her, so she would eventually go on to embrace her individuality. But it's devastating to know that she once denied the same to her former Borg family. Things became even worse after the link was severed. The Doctor found that they would only live for a month at most unless they were reconnected to the Borg. They all chose to live short lives as individuals over returning to another collective. One of them, Marika, even chose to live out the rest of her life aboard Voyager, though we never saw her on screen again. If that happened these days, people would be kicking off, wouldn't they, saying, "Oh, it's a load of rubbish, blah." But, it was fine back then. It was a good episode of that Survival Instinct. I liked that, and it showed how ruthless 7 of 9 could be back when she was a Borg. That was a good one. Right, next. Number 8, the Doctor's Second Life. Oh, yes, I know this one from the picture. Yes, this was an interesting one. Kind of reminded me a little bit of The Inner Light. Reminiscent of that. This is where the Voyager gets stuck in like the upper atmosphere of this planet that's spinning really fast, and time travels faster down there than it does on Voyager. Like a day on Voyager, it'd be like 100 years or whatever on the planet or whatever. Right. Anyway, called in blink of an eye, Voyager got trapped in the atmosphere of a planet that experienced accelerated time. With every second in normal space, a whole day would pass on the planet. Voyager's presence started to cause tremors for the aliens living on the surface. Voyager was only stuck in their atmosphere for a few days, but generations went by on the planet. Religions were formed around the ship, and scientific advancements were made to protect their buildings from tremors. The Doctor was the only one who could survive visiting the planet. Oh, excuse me. So he was sent to gather information about the population and Voyager's role in their society. The plan was for him to stay for 3 days before returning to the ship, 3 seconds of normal time. But there were complications, and by the time they were able to return him, the Doctor had lived for 3 years on the planet. He held out hope for rescue for a while, always able to see Voyager in the sky, but his loneliness soon became unbearable. During his stay on the planet, the Doctor formed a strong relationship with a woman named Marisa, who he called his roommate. We later learned that he even became the father to a child named Jason, whom he likely adopted with Marisa. The Doctor learned a lot in these 3 years. He had a real family for the first time before being abruptly taken from them with no warning. It's really strange that this part of his life isn't brought up more, because they forgot about a lot of things in Voyager. It was a Adventure of the Week type show, wasn't it? So they often didn't go back, although they did sometimes. They often didn't go back and explore what had happened in the past. But anyway, yes, it was a good episode with that blink of an eye. Another one I enjoyed. It had Daniel Day Kim. It had him in it. That was a good one. Right, 7, Mark's surprise appearance. Mark, remember, was Janeway's fiancé. Right, before the Doctor, got his mobile emitter, he was only able to travel to parts of the ship with holographic projectors, mainly sickbay and the holodecks. In the episode Persistence of Vision, the crew tried installing holo emitters in other areas of the ship like engineering, but they ran into some problems, and the Doctor got shrunk when they transferred his program out of sickbay. Janeway played a gothic holo novel program to deal with her stress, but afterwards she started witnessing elements from that program throughout the ship in the real world. It started with a cucumber sandwich and a fancy cup from the program appearing in sickbay, but Janeway soon started seeing characters and hearing voices as well. She became convinced that the new holographic systems were projecting holograms throughout the ship, but when she asked Neelix about the sandwiches and the cup, he explained that they were actually fried Mert cakes and a simple metal cup. It became clear that the others couldn't see what the captain was seeing. The most shocking moment was when Janeway heard the voice of her fiancé Mark in her quarters, who was mad at the captain for leaving him for a holographic lover. Until this point, we were made to believe that these were holograms, but Mark's appearance made it clear that something was actually wrong with Janeway's mind. As things progressed, the rest of the crew began experiencing similar visions. Tuvok of his life on Vulcan, and Paris of his judgmental father, for example, and they learned that a powerful telepathic alien species was causing the hallucinations to weaken the crew. The other hallucinations, particularly Kez's vision of Neelix at the end of the episode, were truly horrific as well, but Mark's appearance in Janeway's quarters was when we discovered that these visions were not merely holograms, and things really started to turn disturbing from there. Obviously I've seen every episode, but I'm struggling to remember this one. I wonder if it's an episode I skip when I do rewatches. I'll have to give it a watch because I can vaguely remember it, but I can't really remember the details of this one. So I'll have to give that one another go. Right. Number 6, an unexpected assimilation. Here we go. There's obviously that's Torres and Tuvok and Janeway. She doesn't make a handsome Borg, does she? Anyway. In Unimatrix Zero, the Voyager crew discovered a dreamlike virtual reality world of the same name where some Borg drones could live as individuals while they were regenerating in the real world. In hopes to weaken the Borg, Janeway concocted a plan to unleash a virus into the collective that would allow the Borg of Unimatrix Zero to remain free-thinking when they awoke from their regeneration. The virus was quickly developed, and the Captain, Tuvok and Torres went on an away mission to spread it to a Borg tactical cube. Originally, the plan was to deliver the virus to the cube's central plexus to spread it to the rest of the collective, but the Borg cornered the away team and the mission ended in disaster. Janeway, Tuvok and Torres were all assimilated. Fortunately, the crew had a plan B, thank goodness. The Doctor infected them all with the virus, which allowed them to stay conscious as individuals for a short time after being assimilated. Because of this, the team were able to spread the virus to the central plexus, but the implication that they were fully aware throughout the whole assimilation process was truly horrifying. The reveal of the away team as Borg at the end of part 1, because we're a two-parter, came before we even knew about the team's plan B, but at least Chakotay gave us some assurance, ominously saying so far so good, and warping away after the away team's life signs began fading. It's good that nobody on the team had any eye implants installed. Yeah, it isn't it? But B'Elanna's voice was the stuff of nightmares. A good episode, that Unimatrix Zero. Well, it has a season-ending cliffhanger. I can't actually remember. Because from season 4 onwards, Voyager had quite a lot of two-part episodes, and I struggle to remember which ones were, middle of the season two-parters, and season ending cliffhanger two-parters. Season 4 particularly, I think it had three, didn't it? 3 two-part episodes. Obviously there was Scorpion and there were Year of Hell and there were I can't remember what they're called now. The one with the Herodian where they took over Voyager, doing the holodeck things. That one. But yeah, Unimatrix Zero was good. I think it showed how ruthless the Borg Queen was. Wasn't that Unimatrix Zero, where she were wiping out millions of Borg that were using Unimatrix Zero? She was killing them just to get rid of it. I think that was in Matrix Zero, but yeah, that was another good one. Right, next up, the history. Number 5, the history of Chronoworks Industries. Right, Voyager was attacked by a 29th century Starfleet timeship in the episode Future's End. Future's End, that's what it was called. Nothing to do with time. Because its captain, Braxton, who had a head transplant, by the way, he appeared again later on in Voyager as a completely different person. It was supposed to be the same one. Anyway, believed that Voyager would be responsible, a different actor, obviously. Believed that Voyager would be responsible for a huge explosion in the future that would destroy Earth and the entire solar system. In the fight, the two were pulled into a space-time anomaly to Earth in the 20th century. Voyager arrived in 1996, but Braxton and his timeship ended up decades earlier in 1967, where they came across Henry Starling. I forgot the bloody name of the actor. Who looked just as old as he did in 1967, the year of my birth, by the way. Looked just as old in 1967 as he did in 1996, but never mind. What was the name of the actor now? He was in Battlestar Galactica, the original. Never mind. Right, Braxton's ship crashed and he beamed away to safety, but before he could find the timeship, a man named Henry Starling discovered it in the mountains and used it to jumpstart humanity's microcomputer revolution. How we got it, and because he was just like a hippie in the woods banging on tin cans, singing songs, and then somehow became this ruthless corporate megalomaniac. Anyway, becoming massively wealthy by reverse engineering 29th century technology through his company Chronoworks Industries, a parody of real computer companies like Apple and Microsoft. It's likely that Starling's influence on early computer tech was undone at the end of the episode, along with Captain Braxton's experiences living on Earth for 30 years, but the Doctor still had his mobile emitter. Oh, I said it American style, didn't I? Mobile emitter that he got from Starling, suggesting that some of the events of the altered timeline still took place. Humanity's advancements in computer technology in the 20th century may have come from the future, in the same way that Scotty paradoxically invented transparent aluminum, in the Voyage Home, Star Trek for the Voyage Home. They had a lot of stuff like that in Star Trek, you know, a lot of what's the word? Chronological inconsistencies. Because obviously the timeline changed, didn't it then? And it wasn't changed back, although it could be argued at the end that Braxton, because he appeared again at the end of Braxton, you know, he'd no knowledge of what had happened, so did it happen or didn't it happen? But the Doctor still had his mobile emitter, so as I said, as Jamie says, it gives her a headache. There's temporal mechanics. But it was a good episode, I enjoyed it, for the most part. Didn't mention the eugenics wars, though, did they? Right, number 4. The Doctor's problematic assistant. Oh, this is the Cardassian one. Sorry, I was just thinking then. I was trying to remember the name of that actor. Never mind. In the Voyager episode, Nothing Human, Lieutenant Torres became fused with an alien life form resembling a facehugger, which paralysed her and slowly sucked out her body's energy to keep itself alive. Unable to detach the alien from B'Elanna, the Doctor decided to create a holographic consultant to assist with his research. He chose a notable Cardassian doctor, Krell Moset, as the basis for the programme. I mean, why did he have to do that? You know, if all the information is in the computer to create the hologram, why not just read, you know, his research? The Doctor could read that research. You know, he could. Well, he wouldn't have to read it, would he? Just absorb it into his program. The two, I think they'll often forget that the Doctor is a computer program. He doesn't have to read things. He doesn't have to do things the way normal people do. He can just, you know, he'd be updated basically, can't he? Anyway, the two holograms started to make progress learning about the alien. We got to know Moset and were made to empathise with him when B'Elanna made bigoted comments against Cardassians, but eventually a Bajoran engineer named Tabor revealed that Dr. Moset was actually an infamous mass murderer from the Cardassian occupation of Bajor, who conducted twisted experiments on Bajoran people that killed hundreds, including members of Tabor's family. the crew was forced to deal with the moral implications of benefiting from the research that took the lives of so many Bajorans. B'Elanna flat out refused to be treated by him when she learned the truth, but the Doctor went against her wishes, detecting the alien with the help of the Mosset hologram. At first, after his past was revealed, the hologram argued that those evil experiments were not in the Starfleet database, and therefore not part of his programme, but when he began defending the atrocities he committed during the occupation, the Doctor was forced to delete him. Yeah, that's where sometimes in Star Trek they do these holograms, and I think it's often they forget that the holograms, that the computer programs basically, and they start just giving them the aspects of the actual person. But never mind. Yeah, it was an okay episode. Not one of my favourites. But it was an interesting one of these ethical problems, wasn't it? To be solved. Number 3, the entirety of Elodium. Didn't like this episode. I'm not a big fan of Kez, to be honest. Anyway, the most jaw-droppingly absurd episode of Voyager is probably Elodium. It all started when Voyager got stuck in a swarm of space-dwelling alien life forms. Hilariously, the life forms mistook the ship's warp signature for the pheromones of a potential mate. Similar to what happened with the Enterprise D, when that creature stuck to it and thought it was its mother, basically, because I think the Enterprise killed its mother accidentally and did like a cesarean section on it and gave birth to its child, and the child imprinted on the Enterprise. It's a similar thing to that, I suppose. And again, that episode, I forgot what it was called. You know what I'm like. But that used holograms. The one where Geordie created the hologram of Leah Brahms and fell in love with it. Anyway, right, where were we? The aliens became sexually attracted to Voyager and attached themselves to the ship's hull. Later, the ship was knocked by a larger life form thought to be of a different sex from the others. The crew tried to fight back by ramming into it, but when this was unsuccessful, Chakotay suggested to behave in a submissive way to show the large alien that they were not a sexual rival. The ship then flipped over and vented plasma to simulate the pheromones of the smaller aliens instead. It should come as no surprise that the episode's plot was approved by Brannon Braga, mainly because he laughed at the idea of having TwoVix say, "It appears we have lost our sex appeal, Captain." Plus, while all this was going on, the energy from the alien swarm caused Kez to go through her Elodium, a kind of Ocampan puberty where the body became ready to have a child. The Elodium only comes once in an Ocampan's life, so Neelix and Kez were forced to decide whether or not to have a kid. Her condition also caused her to eat dirt, insects and massive amounts of mashed potatoes, formed a birthing growth on her back for her offspring to grow in, and gave her scary yellow eyes and intense paranoia. We then got to learn way too much about Ocampan mating practices, and let's also not forget that Kez wasn't even 2 years old in this episode. Yes, Ocampans only live for about 9 years. Well, they said 10, didn't they, in the pilot. Aging much faster than humans, but her and Neelix's relationship is still super uncomfortable to watch. Yeah, well, pretty much. Even though they do age quicker, like, as I said, she was only 2, but she was obviously an adult. But, it's still these moral implications, isn't it? And she was mentally an adult as well. So it's a weird one. It's a weird one. Like I say, to be honest, I was glad when Kez left. I was never a fan of the character. But anyway, and it's a shame what happened to the actress afterwards. Jennifer Lien. She kind of went off the rails, didn't she? But anyway. Number 2, the Murder of TwoVix. It's another one, but I think they did the right thing, to be honest. So the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Other one. No moment in Trek history has generated as much controversy as Janeway's brutal murder of TwoVix. What a brutal murder. The unholy combination of Tuvok and Neelix. The two were combined in a transporter accident, including their clothing. It's kind of, snazzy. which created an entirely new entity, one which seemingly combined the best elements of both of them. TwoVix basically got Tuvok's discipline and intelligence mixed with Neelix's social skill and cooking skills. In fact, Janeway actually said TwoVix's food was better. He quickly became close with the crew, but Janeway missed her friends, or probably just Tuvok to be honest. She ordered the doctor to give TwoVix medication that would allow him to be separated back to two people, but he refused to do so, citing his doctor's oath to do no harm. Janeway instead was forced to administer the shot. Many members of the crew and the audience alike wish that TwoVix was never taken from us. To many, he was more likeable than either Neelix or Tuvok, and killing him off so quickly was really a missed story opportunity. Yeah, they could have stretched it out a bit, couldn't they? They could have stretched it out a bit, but that would mean writing out Tuvok and Neelix, wouldn't it, for however long they kept TwoVix around. They could have found a way to have their cake and eat it, couldn't they? They could have found a way to keep all three of them. You know, do something with the transporters. Do some, technical jiggery-pokery magic, basically. And, do like in The Fly, where they use two pods to transport in to create a third thing, and all that. They should have done something like that. But it'd be nice to have TwoVix and Tuvok and Neelix as well as. Maybe not permanently, but have him around for a while and then decide he wants to go off and do his own thing. That's what they could have done. Or he could have died saving the crew, and they all missed him. Even Tuvok and Neelix, they should have done something like that. Yes, they should. Right. And finally, what's the number one? Number one, the first Warp 10 flight. Well, they mentioned that at the beginning, didn't they? So here we go. That's obviously from Lower Decks, isn't it? This is an episode that everybody hates, but I really like this episode. I don't know why people don't like it. Anyway, off we go. Words simply cannot describe the pain of having to watch Threshold. There you go. I like this episode. I don't see what's wrong with it. This episode took a cool concept, the idea of Warp 10, and took it in a direction that nobody could have predicted or wanted. There's nothing wrong with it. Voyager conducted it shows that we're not meant to travel at Warp 10. Warp 10 is a forbidden thing. It's like playing God, basically, and they got punished for it. That's what the episode were all about. Voyager conducted some experiments on the shuttlecraft to achieve Warp 10, the theoretical limit to the warp speed scale, which would allow the ship to occupy every point in space simultaneously. Of all things that could have happened, the writers decided that going at infinite velocity would have the unintended side effect of accelerating the traveller's evolution. Paris, the first to travel in the Warp 10 ship, and thus becoming, up there with Zefram Cochrane and all the others, and Jonathan Archer and all that. His name will be revered in annals of history, started losing his mind and transforming into a lizard upon returning. They're more like amphibians, really, weren't they? I don't know what they were, to be honest. Because, of course, humans would turn into lizards over time. Why wouldn't they? They were more like, let's say, more amphibious. Or more like, the mud skipper fish. They're more like that, weren't they? It's supposed to be evolution, but it didn't seem it, did it? But never mind, that doesn't matter. Paris then kidnapped Captain Janeway, why he picked her I don't know, aboard the Warp 10 shuttle and subsequently mutated her into a lizard as well, because they went to Warp 10 again. The shuttle landed and the two of them mated and made creepy human lizard babies, who Voyager left behind in the Delta Quadrant after finding their crewmates and changing their bodies back. Though a similar creature was seen in Lower Decks, so it's possible their children were eventually found, or maybe somebody else accidentally went too fast and met the same fate. I think that the babies sort of like scuttled off into the water, I think, something like that. I'm sure they did. Could be wrong, probably thinking of something else. Threshold managed to misrepresent evolution, warp physics and basic logic all at once. Not warp physics. And basic logic all at once, giving us an episode that leaves us screaming, what the flippity flip, from start to finish. There we go. And that's it. I like that episode. I like Threshold. It's one I watch again. There's episodes I'll skip over, like that Persistence of Vision and episodes like that. But yeah, I'll watch Threshold because I really like it. Probably because it's kind of a bit of a monster one. It's kind of horrific, in it, with Paris's transformation and stuff, and That's probably why I like it. It's like my horror films. So it's slightly horrific. But it's a good episode. I enjoyed it. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it, and I don't know why people complain about it. It's because Paris and Janeway had kids. That's why people don't like it. It leaves a sour taste in their mouth. Right, so that's it. That's the end of that list. So I just thought I'd share that with you. 10 what the flippity flip moments from Star Trek Voyager. There's probably 10 more we could think of. I can't think of anything off the top of my head because I'm not thinking today for some reason. My brain's not working. But there are other stuff that went on. Answers in the comments down below when it ends up on YouTube. Or if you're watching on Patreon, put the answers. If you can think of any more what the flippity flip moments from Voyager, stick them in there. Right. Thanks for watching. Wherever you are, look after each other, and until next time, I'll see thee.